It is the 10-year anniversary of me leaving conversion therapy, and I recently dug deep into my history, and I want to have the opportunity to share about it. This has caused significant damage in my life, especially since it is the 10-year anniversary of the Ferguson versus JONAH trial, and I have a lot of personal updates about this story and my case. I am unfortunately still recovering from what I have experienced in conversion therapy, and especially when it's seemingly our rights are being rolled back, what better opportunity to share about my conversion therapy story from a decade of the Ferguson versus JONAH trial. If you felt like I left some things out, please give me a comment, like this video to boost it in the algorithm, and please subscribe to my channel because I have a lot more that I want to talk about when it comes to this specific subject. Thank you so much. Let's begin. It was a Saturday night in 2014. The participants were left alone in the cabin by ourselves for the first time. So this was the first time that all of us were able to talk to each other. We never had a chance to communicate with each other because the camp I attended was heavily monitored by the leaders. The main leader of the camp that I attended was a short Jewish man named Arthur Goldberg.
My name is Arthur Goldberg, and I'm the co-director of JONAH, which stands for Jews Offering New Alternatives to Homosexuality. We are the only organization worldwide that works to help men and women with unwanted same-sex attractions go from gay to straight.
I remember him talking specifically about the Ferguson versus JONAH case, and one of the things that I thought was weird was him mentioning, if you don't want to change, you don't have to be here. So I thought to myself, who in their right mind would want to come out to be gay? This was back in 2014. I came from an extremely homophobic family, and I was afraid that I was going to get beat up by my father. Being Jamaican and raised in a small farming community in Canada where there was really no gay representation, felt like it was a little bit tough to come out and to try to be myself. I didn't feel safe enough to come out to people that were in my community, so I turned to online. So introduced to one person, and one person introduced me into another, and then that person introducing me to another, and then 300 people, and that's how I was introduced into the conversion therapy space. So they sold me this, and they sold me a lie, and even back then I knew that it was a cult, but I was so used to being treated badly by people that I didn't know how to navigate spaces or those spaces. So I really didn't know what to do even back then. I didn't have a lot of friends, and I grew up like I said, I grew up in a tiny homophobic community. Coming out wasn't an option during that time for me. I met a guy at the camp who wanted to be friends with me, and since I didn't have a lot of people that I could talk to, I thought, if we know to keep each other's secrets and we know not to say anything to anybody, I would love nothing more than to have a friend that wants to be friends with me, especially if we met on the inside of the camp. I thought it was something that I needed at that time. He lived in the United States and I lived in Canada. He actually worked for the United States military at that time. He just passed his drug test and he wanted me to buy him weed. I didn't smoke at the time, and I kind of resented my father, being Jamaican and all. So I said, no, I don't really want to buy weed. And he said, yes. I said, no. He said, yes. There's one thing that this guy didn't want to hear, and that was the word no. So basically, he was like, oh, you don't want me to be part of your circle of friends? I said, no, I just don't want to smoke. And he would just make things up until I eventually said yes, and so I bought him weed. And then I remember him saying, oh, just to let you know, weed makes me horny. And I was like, oh, that's weird, because weed makes me sleepy. So I don't know where you're getting this information from, but whatever. So we smoked in my car, and then we went up to my room, and I was about to sleep, and I remember him with his left hand holding me by the back of the neck, asking for me to sleep with him, and I said no. And then he said something. I said, what? He said, take off your pants. I said no. And then I remember him yelling at me in my own home to take off my pants. And I remember, because I was super religious at the time, I remember me praying to God and saying to God, God, if you are there, please help me get my friend back because I have no idea who this is right now. I eventually did take off my pants, and then he said, yeah, you want to get do you? I said, no, I don't. He says, yeah, you do. I said, no, I do not. And then I put on my shorts, and then I remember me going to my sofa to try to get some sleep on my sofa. So my eyes were closed, and there was light tapping onto my forehead, and this guy was my forehead. I was freaked out. I didn't know what to do. He proceeded to go into my room and then shut the door behind him. And I was afraid. I didn't know how to react.
This is exactly where I've experienced conversion therapy. I was actually in this room right here.
The whole situation is messy, and there's so many scenarios of this guy just treating me poorly. He was truly obsessed with me, and I didn't really know how to handle it. He would have both my emails, my social media, my phone numbers. He knew where I would be on the weekend, and he knew where my family lived because he wanted to meet my family. I told him no a bunch of times, and he basically forced me to meet my family. This guy had a difficult time with boundaries, and it really messed me up. When I went to conversion therapy, I couldn't come out because I was that afraid of my dad. The day that I came out to my mom, this guy drove 8 hours one way to stalk me. He had a TV over at my house and he wanted to take the TV, which was fine, but it was only a $200 TV, so I don't really understand why it took him 8 hours one way to try to find me for a $200 TV when it cost that much in gas, but that's neither here nor there. I had to leave my town because I was that afraid of him, because I knew exactly where he was going to be, because that's where I would be if I was there. Because I used to go to a sports bar and watch sports on Saturday nights, and he knew the schedule of it, and then he just stalked me forever, and it's just terrible. I even told the leadership that was on the inside of the camp what happened, and I got zero response from them. The message reads like this. June 7th, 2015. Rich, I know it's crazy, but it's been a month and I'm still being harassed by Paul. He went over to my old house, have to live with my mom because of safety, to try to find me. He tried to private message my personal friends about me. He is stalking me hardcore. I fear that he will come back to my hometown to stalk me again. I'm in extreme fear because I don't want to be around him at all. I had a personal friend call me 2 weeks ago, call me UFC night after I skipped town. He said, it's weird that Paul is here and you aren't. I have to give him the story that he was stalking me. I'm really afraid. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't want you to say anything about this, but I may have to call the police. I'm tired of my safety being invalidated because I'm getting harassed. I also had a CBC Marketplace interview where I did an in-depth investigation of Rich Weiler, and I'm going to leave that in the description box below because it was a horrible situation. Like I said, he wouldn't leave me alone. He had my emails. He would send me photos of himself with a shirt off with his emails. The constant messaging of him was unbearable, to say the least. Shortly after, I went to my first Pride in Pride, Toronto. I thoroughly enjoyed myself back in 2015. It was my first Pride. It was a rainy weekend. And I remember celebrating and having fun and having a good time, and it was just so refreshing at that time. And then I got an email from conversion therapy at the time of the Ferguson versus JONAH trial, and this is really fascinating. And it reads this. JONAH legal update, June 25th, 2015. Dear friends and colleagues, at this time, Arthur and I are still in shock, but want to let you know of the unjust and unconscionable ruling that has come down in the Southern Poverty Law Center's suit against JONAH. We will send additional updates as we decide what our next steps are going to be. With today's decision, we have lost only a battle, but can win the war. We intend to appeal and have grounds on which we expect to win. We need funds to stay running though. So please forward this email to donors so they understand the gravity of the situation. The FCDF has expended over $3 million to date and urgently need your financial support to continue the fight against such injustice. Below is Chris Doyle's note, which expresses the sentiments of many JONAH supporters and allies, and a press release from our lead attorney, Charles Lamardi, of the Freedom Conscience Defense Fund. Please pray for the future of all the good men and women involved in doing God's mandated work for helping those with unwanted SSA, or same-sex attraction. Shalom and great sadness, Arthur Goldberg. Dear friends, I just got off the phone with Arthur and Elaine at JONAH. It is with heavy hearts that I let you know that JONAH and Alan Downing have been found guilty of 16 or 17 out of 20 counts of consumer fraud. Arthur and Elaine and JONAH, as I am, are shocked. I'm writing you with tears rolling down my face. The absolute unjustness of this decision at the Southern Poverty Law Center's campaign is sickening. Please, at this moment, say a prayer for Arthur and Elaine and Alan Downing, who must be suffering tremendously under this persecution. The only thing that I know for sure, God is in control and on his throne. But today, I feel America is no longer a free place to think, work, and live with this travesty. May God be with JONAH and all of us. Christopher Doyle. I honestly didn't know what to think after I received that email, and I experienced some harms at the camp myself and terrible behavior from leadership that was on the inside of that camp. I felt alone in my experiences, to say the least. Shortly after, I emailed the Metropolitan Community Church in Toronto, and it reads this. Keep in mind, this is really embarrassing, but I'm going to be reading it anyway. This is how religious that I was, but this is also how broken I was during the time that this happened. This is on June 29th, 2015. It reads this. Prayer support / someone to talk to. First of all, I would like to thank you and appreciate your service via email, and I would like some assistance. My name is Matt Ashcroft. I'm 25 years old and now living in Toronto. That was from a small town of Belleville, Ontario. I would consider myself a gay Christian, and before I thought there was nobody like me, and the church would call it a sin. I have also been through a lot of craziness in the past couple of years. These may include ex-gay ministries, gay conversion therapy, reparative therapy, and even have some friends that are in support of the JONAH case. I don't speak to them anymore because I believe in something else, and I don't see the consistency of what they do with what they believe. I am a firm believer in Christ. Oh, God. I'm a firm believer in Christ, inclusive to everyone. I'm also a believer in the fruits of the Spirit. I look at these ministries and I see anger, bitterness, and frustration. It's like they hate something that they are a part of to begin with. It really doesn't make too much sense to me. The last church that I was at, it was in Belleville, and made me feel excluded. I felt like I was a project of change instead of a person that was to love, to feel love, and to be loved. I told my pastor that I was gay, and he basically told me to focus on healing. With disappointment, I've stopped going to church. I still love God to the fullest. I have a hard time with some people that proclaim to be Christians and treat others with disrespect. Anyway, I'm living in Toronto, needing to connect, needing employment, and needing a fresh start for everyone, including a lot of my family. I need community again. I need to feel connected. I'm feeling pretty upset and broken. I just want to feel like I matter. Please stay connected, and my telephone number is this. Thank you so much for taking the time to read this, Matt. Remember when I said a bunch of no's would lead into a yes? Well, he pressured me to live with him, and I did, because, again, I couldn't get him to leave me alone, and the only way that I could feel like that I could escape him is if I lived in Texas with him, which was pretty much one of the dumbest ideas that I've ever had. But I knew a bunch of people in Texas that if something were to happen, I would be able to escape. It could have been one of the biggest mistakes of my life. Like, I could have easily died. The guy was psychotic, and I didn't really know how to handle it. He had racist attacks on me. We were fighting in the laundromat, and he repeatedly say some racist, horrible racist things to me. Degraded me as a human, along with him begging me for 45 minutes while him, with his right hand, holding me at the back of the neck again to have sex with him. So he would be begging me to have sex with him. And I did. And it was like the only way that I could go home. I traveled from Amtrak to Toronto from Texas to escape him. I finally escaped. I moved into an apartment in Toronto where it only had 2 plug-ins in the entire apartment. And I struggled ever since that I came to the city of Toronto. Because of conversion therapy, I have been in several abusive relationships. I had developed an addiction, and I got extreme PTSD to the point where I can't even sleep because of my conversion therapy experiences. I'm so lucky to be alive, let alone speak about my experiences at the House of Commons. Fighting conversion therapy is the single most important thing because I wanted to be sure that I protected me 10 years ago. So I wanted to have an opportunity to speak out against it, even though I really didn't have the support at the time, and I still really don't have the support now. If anybody wants to know why I'm fight conversion therapy so intensely, or want to fight conversion therapy so intensely, is because of situations like that. Conversion therapy could have easily killed me, and I'm lucky to share this story today. Thank you so much for watching. Tune in next time. I think I have more stuff to share, but stay tuned for that. Thank you. Over and out.